Hello, I'm Panos Kotzathanassis and this is Bad Accent Video Reviews. Today we're going to talk about Jafar Panahi's It Was Just an Accident. In his first film after being released from prison, where he was incarcerated for supporting the anti-government protests in Iran, Jafar Panahi makes a subtle but noticeable shift away from his recent semi-documentary approach. With It Was Just an Accident, he embraces a more overtly narrative structure without abandoning the elements that have defined his cinema for decades: a sharp political consciousness, an understated sense of humor, and an ability to address deeply painful realities through humane, accessible storytelling. The film's reception confirms its significance, having been awarded the Palme d'Or at the 78th Cannes Film Festival, a distinction that places Panahi among a very small group of filmmakers alongside Robert Altman and Michelangelo Antonioni, who have won top prizes at Berlin, Cannes, and Venice. The story begins in deceptively mundane fashion with a road accident that sets off a chain reaction of events. Vahid, played by Vahid Mobasseri, is a car mechanic who becomes convinced that a customer at his garage, Ekbal, portrayed by Ibrahim Azizi, might be the man who once tortured him under the regime. Crucially, he is not certain. This lack of certainty pushes him to seek out his friends, all of them fellow victims of state violence, in an attempt to identify the man. What follows is not a simple tale of revenge, but a moral dilemma. If this is indeed their torturer, what should be done and who gets to decide? Told largely in real time, It Was Just an Accident is built on a careful balance of contrasts. On one side lies the brutal legacy of an authoritarian system. On the other, a group of people attempting to live ordinary lives filled with work, relationship, weddings, and childbirth. Panahi masterfully blends dark, heavy themes with lighter, almost absurd moments, drawing the viewer in and sustaining tension throughout. New information, shifting perspectives, and sharp naturalistic dialogue continuously reshape the situation, forcing both the characters and the audience to reassess their positions. At its core, the film is deeply concerned with trauma and the ways people live with it. Some characters try to forget and adapt, others remember but endure, while some allow trauma to define their entire existence. What Panahi makes painfully clear is that no one truly forgets. The trauma persists, shaping behavior and choices in ways that are often invisible. The comedic tones that occasionally emerge in a story that simultaneously involves a suspected torturer, a wedding, and a birth do not undermine the gravity of the subject matter. Instead, they underline how life continues even under the shadow of violence. Tension is established almost immediately through Wahid's urgency and obsession with confirming the man's identity, and it escalates dramatically with the appearance of Hamid, whose thirst for revenge pushes the group towards dangerous territory. The question of whether Ekbal really is the torturer functions as the emotional and moral center of the film, binding the characters together and exposing their fears of becoming cruel themselves. Violence, justice, and the possibility of solidarity born out of shared suffering are all placed under scrutiny. The acting reaches its peak in the film's final confrontation, a heated exchange between Vahid and the suspected torturer, with the regime's cruel pragmatism and the humanizing logic are laid bare. Visually, Panahi once again collaborates with cinematographer Amin Jafari, following their work together on Three Faces and No Bears. The aesthetic remains austere and restrained, characterized by a lack of non-diegetic music and an avoidance of overt stylistic flourishes. Carefully composed long takes are used to build tension and allow scenes to breathe, while Amir et Minan's seamless editing keeps the focus firmly on the film's true subject: difficult conversations about morality, justice, and responsibility. This stripped-down style, familiar to Panahi's admirers, reinforces the sense of realism and immediacy that defines the film. Given the movie's dialogue-driven nature and its large ensemble cast, it is difficult and perhaps unnecessary to single out one performance. Over its 105-minute runtime, the audience encounters a wide spectrum of responses to trauma. The uncertain and haunted Vahid, the measured and thoughtful photographer Siva, played by Marianne Afsari, the impulsive and vengeful Hamid, portrayed by Muhammad Ali Eliasmeh, the emotionally charged bride Gorloch, played by Hadis Pakbaden, and her husband-to-be Ali, portrayed by Mazid Panahi, the only character not directly traumatized by the regime. Together, the cast delivers uniformly strong performances that capture the fragile, often volatile dynamics between people united primarily by a shared painful past. By bluntly addressing themes of state violence, justice, and tyranny as they coexist with everyday normality, It Was Just an Accident functions as a gripping, morally complex thriller that leaves the viewer with questions rather than clear answers. Once again, working without a permit from the Islamic Republic, Panahi reaches the peak of his filmmaking craft, creating a deeply humanistic and resolutely anti-totalitarian work. In what is arguably his most straightforward film to date, where the system is embodied by a figure presented as unequivocally cruel, Panahi reminds us that real people live under and suffer from such regimes, and that their emergence was never just an accident. Thank you for watching, and as always, stay tuned to Asian Movie Pulse. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe. Have a nice day. Bye.